You've probably strapped on a 40 or 42 millimeter watch and thought, mate, you're wearing a dinner plate, because that's what the internet tells you a real man's watch should be, 40 millimeters, or it's for the ladies. And honestly, that's bollocks. Serious collectors, they're wearing the mid-30s, 34 to 37 millimeters, maybe smaller. That's what we're unpacking today. Why do so many serious collectors end up reaching for watches that are smaller than what they thought they wanted? The answer is almost always the same. They're simply the most wearable. These are the pieces where the spec sheet stops lying to you, usually from 34 to 37 millimeters. Today we'll touch on the mid-size comeback, jumbo icons to mid-size scions, and Patek's mid-size story. In Part 2, we'll dive further into Audemars Piguet, Rolex, and Cartier pieces, and a few that prove the number on paper is only half the story. So what does a mid-size comeback actually look like in market terms? Because this isn't just hobbyist opinion, you can see it in how the industry itself is talking. In 2026, watch media are describing mid-size watches making a firm comeback, calling 36 millimeters the defining trend of 2026 and the ergonomic sweet spot. A watch that disappears under a shirt cuff, doesn't bruise your wrist on a long-haul flight, feels like a second skin. The secondary market picture is just as clear. The broad used watch index is roughly a third off its post-pandemic peak, but still above pre-COVID levels, with steady growth the past year. Within that data, the mid-size signal is specific. Take the quintessential mid-size, the Rolex date just 36, as at April 2026, reference 126234 saw stronger price increases over 6 months, trading roughly 26% above retail versus 22% for the date just 41. And then there's Patek's 37.5mm Nautilus 3800, going from slept on to one of the most talked about vintage references of the current cycle. Then, at Watches and Wonders 2026, the Patek flagship Nautilus 50th Anniversary 5610 came in at 38 millimeters. That is not a coincidence. Even the broader conversation has shifted. Collectors like Mike Nouveau and Mr. Enthusiast have built entire audiences around vintage pieces, pulling in a whole new generation of watch fans toward classic proportions. This isn't a niche whisper, it is a category-level realignment. And critically, it's not just nostalgia. A mid-size watch is not a smaller version of a 41. It is a completely different experience. To understand why mid-size matters now, you need to go back to where it started, one of the most concentrated bursts of design thinking this industry has ever seen. 3 houses, 1 era, starting in 1972. Same philosophy, integrated steel bracelet, thin movement, luxury in steel. Borderline disrespectful at the time. Audemars Piguet, the Royal Oak 5402. The Jumbo, 39 millimeters. Gerald Genta's original icon, octagonal bezel, 8 screws, tapisserie dial 7.3 millimeters thin. Patek Philippe. The Nautilus 3700, 40 millimeters, another Genta masterpiece, same integrated bracelet philosophy, different silhouette, porthole case, horizontally embossed dial. Vacheron Constantin, the 222, reference 44018, 37 millimeters, Jurg Heisseck's design, launched in 1977. Tonneau case, Maltese cross at 5 o'clock, integrated bracelet. All 3 from the Holy Trinity were sub-40. The JLC 920-based calibers running through these watches, 2.45 millimeters thin, kept the cases flat and ultra-thin. But on a smaller wrist, these jumbos wore large. And so, inevitably, came the scions. AP's Royal Oak 4100ST, 35 millimeters, same octagonal bezel, screws, integrated bracelet, scaled for a wrist that didn't need to make an entrance. Patek's Nautilus 3800, 37 millimeters, same porthole, DNA, same Genta language, in a case that actually disappears under a cuff. Vacheron's 222 reference 46003 at 34, same tonneau case, Maltese cross, integrated bracelet. Three icons, three scions, each proving the same thing, that the most resolved version of a great design is rarely the biggest one. From jumbo icons to mid-size scions, that's where the design argument was won. Let's take a look at some highlights of Patek's mid-size story. On the dress side, the Calatrava series. The original reference 96 is on the small side by today's standards, roughly 31 millimeters, wide flat bezel, wafer-thin hand-wound movement. It's the purest expression of what Patek does with a case-size mainstream for its time, still proportionately refined today. The 3796 continues that in a neo-vintage package with a caliber 215 PS, one of Patek's thinnest movements. The rose gold case with salmon pink dial? Extra saucy. A size step up is the reference 5196 at 37 millimeters, also with the Cal 215 PS, modern in diameter but impossibly flat on the wrist, the kind of piece that makes you question why dress watches ever needed to be 40. On the sports side, the Nautilus 3800 we now know was an enthusiast's hidden gem. It's 37.5 millimeters, mid-40s lug-to-lug. Dimensions are powered by the thin automatic caliber 335SC. Not quite as razor-thin as the Jumbo's movement, but slim enough that the 3800 sits low and flat on the wrist, hugging rather than perching. For a lot of collectors, the 3800 is the most wearable Nautilus ever made. And then 2026 confirmed everything. At Watches and Wonders, Patek unveiled the reference 56101P, the only platinum piece in the Nautilus 50th Anniversary Collection, 38 millimeters, caliber 240, ultra thin at 2.53 millimeters, no date, no center seconds, diamond at 9 o'clock. The brand that killed the Steel 5711 in 2021 chose a mid-size as a flagship platinum anniversary statement, a deliberate, explicit callback to the 3800. They didn't have to do that. They chose to. Alright, so that's part one. In part two, AP's Royal Oak mid-size ladder, Rolex's market reversal, and Cartier rewriting the rules. Hit subscribe so it lands straight in your feed, and drop your take below. Patek, AP, Rolex, or Cartier. Who does mid-size best? See you in the next one.